If you scrub through the plate a little bit here, the green screen plate, you'll see that it's got a little bit of wiggle in it. It's bouncing up and down a bit, and it's supposed to be a lock-off shot. And for the effect that we want to do to work, we really need it to be a perfect lock-off. So we'll have to stabilize this plate. Now we could do that using maybe a point tracker or the planar tracker, but an interesting trick you can do is use the camera tracker in this context. Since it's only a nodal pan, pan and tilt, it's okay to use the camera tracker to track it, and then we can use that to stabilize this. So let's go ahead and start setting that up. Now, because there's so much activity here, we're going to need a mat to mask out these actors. So let's drop down a Primat node to make that. Primat's my go-to key here for when I want to make a quick and dirty mat. I'm going to just use auto compute, and let's see how that went. It looks like it picked a pretty good setting for the screen color, and I'm going to check off adjust lighting here. Yep, that improved it even further. And now let's clean up the foreground noise. So I'm just lassoing these areas in the foreground that I want to make sure are absolutely solid matte. And we'll do a similar thing for clean background noise. So lasso the things I absolutely don't want to have be in the mat to exclude those things. And because I want to leave the ladder in because it's going to be a little bit more good stuff to track, let me gmat these guys so that it's only the guys that are being excluded. One of the tricks you can do with Primat is drop down a roto node upstream of it, and as long as you set it up right here, you can have Primat just ignore this as a gmat right in line. So drop that in there, go to the Primat node, and if we select mask alpha, the incoming alpha, it will use this as a gmat right in line. So now we've got our gmat set up. Let's clean it up just a bit. I'm going to erode fast just the alpha. Now I'm hitting M to show the matte overlay, and I'm only going to act on the alpha channel here. So I will erode that in until all these speckles disappear. And then go the opposite way to make these guys solid and to give them a little bit of a border around them. So now we're ready to go. We have our gmat that we can use for the camera tracker. I'm going to drop down the camera tracker. And we're going to use it a little differently than maybe we've used it before. Instead of free camera, we're going to make sure that we're set to rotation only. And we do know the lens here, so we know approximate constant. It's approximately 8 millimeters. And the camera is a Blackmagic cinema camera. View it at the camera tracker. Now, one trick I like to do is I like to always work on the settings here. Because of the way the Primat set up here, also we're pre-multiplying away all of the tracking markers. So we have to make sure that Primat is not sending out any composite stuff. We just want it to send out a not pre-multiplied image, which will send out through the original RGB channels and just inject the mat like this. So now we're set up. Let's go back to the camera tracker, and I like to turn on preview features and refine feature locations because that will snap them to the corners a little bit better. And the reason I like to always preview the features is to make sure that I have everything set up right. So as you can see, our mask is not being respected yet, so I'm going to set up mask source alpha, and then that will use the source alpha to disregard anything in that alpha channel. And I'm also going to, let's say, turn up the amount of tracks just a little bit. We'll go up to 200 and 50 as our number of features to track. And I'm going to move the feature separation a little closer together. That'll allow some of these features like this to get more tracks on them. Okay, I think we're all ready to go. And another thing, though, that I do tend to do is increase the minimum length. So I'm going to increase this up to 5. It's set to track rotation only, so I think that's it. We're ready to go. Hit track and let it track. All right, that took around 4 minutes to get the tracks, and let's go ahead and solve the camera based on these tracks and see what we get. So we're getting a tracking error of about 1.6. I think we could probably do better. Let's look at the tracks here, and we'll reduce the error down to like 1. And we'll reduce the max error just a little bit too, to let's say like 2.5. Delete rejected. And we'll solve it again. There we go. So now we got an error of 0.5, which is quite good. So the trick for turning these back into 2D tracks is that you need to either use this camera as a projection camera, or we're really more interested in having this be used for just 2D stabilization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reconcile 3D, or you can promote some of these tracks to 2D tracks. So let's see if we have any that last the whole duration of the shot. And it looks like we may have a few here. These guys over here last the whole duration of the shot. And looks like this guy over here. So I'm going to lasso a few of these trackers that last the whole duration of the shot. And then this guy over here. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to extract them as user tracks. And you'll see they pop up here, but they also pop into the user tracks tab here. So these are just like the trackers you would create with the tracker, the 2D tracker, only that now you didn't have to figure out which one was going to track through the whole duration of the thing. So I can select the ones I want, and I can export them as a tracker here. That'll make a tracker node. There we go. So now I have a tracker that I can use. If I like, I could just use it as a stabilized node. Let's disconnect it here momentarily, and let's go through it just to see. It looks like one of these tracks doesn't last the whole time. Kind of disappears there on us, but we'll try using it anyway. So if we put this to transform stabilize, we could just make this tracker into a stabilized node. Let's give ourselves a little hint there. Turn off matte overlay. And let's see how it's stabilizing. It's doing a good job. Now, if you ever want to check how well something is stabilizing, sort of a low-tech trick that you can do is put your cursor over some feature and just hit play. And if that feature doesn't seem to bounce around, then you know that you're getting a pretty good stabilization. I didn't bother stabilizing rotation because it didn't seem like there was much rotation, and sometimes it just makes things worse. So if you have small amounts of rotation. So this seems to be stabilizing pretty well. So I think we're in good shape. So we can get rid of our camera tracker, or we can keep it around. I mean, we've got those tracks that we extracted in our stabilize. So there, that's my trick for using this to get 2D tracks in a sort of letting the computer do the work, a lazy kind of way. So now let's keep working on our key. Now that we've got this stabilized, we want to stabilize the stuff that we're going to send to our card, but it doesn't really matter where we put our keyer. So we'll start wiring up our keyer in the next video.